Hey everyone, it's been a while since I did a red line restoration, so I rummaged around all my old beater red lines and found this Sweet 16 custom Camaro. I can't remember what I paid for it, probably a couple bucks. It's in rather bad shape, covered in oxidation, and the hood is broken, so I'll have to work on that in a bit. I've gone ahead and taken the luxury of drilling the rivets and tapping the post. The windshield and interior plastic are in reasonable shape, and nothing is missing on the car. The hood is the only thing that is broken. It's missing a post, so I'll need to create a new one later. So I'll go ahead and strip the car of its paint for now. While the paint stripper is doing its job, I'll go ahead and remove these old tires with some nippers. It's important that you cut the wheels off, even though they were originally meant to be pulled off. The old plastic bearings on these Hong Kong-made cars are notorious for popping off with the wheels. If this happens, then you're out of luck and will need to find a donor car to replace the axle and bearings you broke. So always cut the old wheels off. Since I'll be working on the base later, I'll go ahead and remove the axle and bearings from the base. I wish Mattel had kept this bent axle design longer than they did. It's so easy to remove and replace and modify compared to anything they've made since. I'm sure it had to do with expense because they moved away from it rather quickly. So the paint stripper has done its job, and I can now get a good look at the metal underneath the paint. As you can see, there's a lot of oxidation on this car. My plan for this particular car is to minimize any surface destruction that I can. In the past, I've used all sorts of aggressive methods for removing oxidation, such as sanding and wire brushing, all methods I've been trying to get away from. So for this car, I'll use methods that I consider less damaging to the surface. The first step I would like to do is to try and remove as much rust as possible and give the surface a mild polish. So I'll use my electro polishing setup to do just that. If you're unfamiliar with this process, you can check out a previous video I made specifically on performing it. In that video, I go into great detail on how to set everything up and the general idea of what's happening. The short version is that I'm dipping the metal parts into 75% phosphoric acid, my electrolyte. The car and the stainless steel strip are attached to the car battery charger. When I dip the car in the acid, the circuit is completed and the metal is polished and the rust removed. The process only takes a few seconds, and then each part is washed in cold water and scrubbed with a toothbrush to remove any residue. The body of this car is extremely rusty, so I only plan to remove as much rust as I can for the few seconds that I have the car in the acid. If left in the acid, the process would keep removing the rust faster than the surrounding metal. Just like any other rusty part that you remove the rust from, it will look pitted once all the rust is removed. So to minimize this, I will remove all the light surface rust I can, but leave any deep rust to be removed by the next method. Be sure to watch my video on this process before attempting it. I go over all the safety issues. While reasonably safe, there is enough amps running through this to kill you if you somehow get those amps to run across your heart. A pretty tall order, but probably still possible. Make sure you know what you're doing before you attempt this. From what I can tell, this process is very gentle to the surface. If there is any nickel plating on the Zamac, it appears to leave it alone. The only issue is, as I mentioned before, is that it can remove rust faster than the surrounding metal, giving a pitted look if you're not careful. To further remove the rust and finish polishing the surface, I'll use some metal polish. There's no way to remove all the rust using these processes on this car. To do that, I would have to use some sanding blocks and steel wool, something I don't want to do. Also, I'm not going to put much effort into removing all the rust in the roof of the car as I plan to paint it black anyway. So here's what the car looked like after about 15 minutes of polishing. This is as far as I feel I need to go. Most of the oxidation is gone, with only the deeper oxidation left. I should not have much trouble covering this up with the Spectraflame paint later. Alright, before I paint the car, I need to fix the hood. Hoods tend to break in different places, but in this case I'm missing the small post on the hood that makes up a hinge. The block that the post was attached to is still there, and I can use this to fix the hood. The first thing I'm going to do is cover the block with super glue. I'm planning on drilling a very small hole in the block to replace the post. The super glue will aid in the cutting of the hole because it's easier to drill through than the metal. This will help the drill bit from slipping around when I start the hole. To drill the hole, I will use a very small push drill with a drill bit the same size as the wire I plan to use to replace the post. Just like drilling any hole, it's easier to start with a smaller drill bit and then move up to the one that you desire. If you've never used drill bits this small before, be prepared to break several of them as they're extremely delicate. Once a hole is drilled, I will bend the wire so that once it's placed in the hole, it matches with the post on the opposite side. Since I do not wish to modify the clips in the car body that would hold the post, I must place the hood on the car with the one good post inside its clip. I then drive the small wire through the hole I drilled and into the other clip. If I had glued the wire on first, there'd be no way to get the post back into the clips without damaging them. Once the wire was in place and everything looked right, I glued the wire in place. Now that the hood is fixed, I can start thinking of painting. The car was originally blue, but blue is the most common color for this car, and I already have two more that are blue. I need to paint it a dark color because dark is great for hiding things like oxidation. So I'm thinking of purple with a black top. To make sure that there was really a Hong Kong custom Camaro with a black top and purple body, I checked with my redline guide. As it turns out, they did make one so purple it is. And yes, I know the prices in this book are insane. I'm not sure where the author got them, but he swears that these are prices that he's seen people pay for these cars. Crazy, I know. I'm going to paint the roof of the car first. The main reason for doing this has to do with mistakes. If I mess up painting the roof, it's easy to remove the paint and start over. If I paint the roof after I paint the Spectraflame and mess up, there's a chance I might have to redo the black and Spectraflame paint, something I'd like to avoid. Painting the black first and then painting the Spectraflame on top will not affect the black at all. The Spectraflame paint is mostly transparent and can't change the black to purple. After the black paint dries, I can then paint on my purple Spectraflame paint. And this is how it looked when I was done. You may notice that the roof is too glossy, and I'll address that in a bit. For now, I'll set the body aside for about 2 days for the paint to fully cure. While I wait for the paint to cure, I'll go ahead and use some rubbing compound to remove the scratches from the windshield. You can watch my video on windshield repair if you're interested in this process. I also need to address the grille and the back of the car. This is done by simply masking off the areas around the front and back and then airbrushing with a black paint primer. If you're fast enough, you can use a toothpick to remove any paint from areas you might not want it. For example, the small circular area in the back of the car. Once the paint dries, I will then clear coat with a matte clear coat and then paint in the rear tail lights with red enamel. Once everything on the base is dried, I can put the bent axles and bearings back in and adjust them. And then, of course, I can push on the new wheels onto the bearings. If I need to adjust anything such as alignment, now would be the time to do that. Okay, so at this point it's been a couple days and I have now remasked off the roof and will clear coat it with a matte clear coat to remove the glossy look it has now. Once the clear coat dries, I can go about putting the car back together. So after all that work, here's the final result. I feel like the purple did a great job of covering up any residual oxidation or surface discoloration. I'm probably going to respray the roof again with a more flat clear coat. The Tester's clear coat I used knocked back some of the glossy look, but I still feel like it's a bit too glossy. This is very simple to fix. Overall, I'm very pleased with the result given no sandpaper or harsh abrasives were used on this car. Of course, you can let me know below what you think and also let me know what Sweet 16 model you want to see next restored on my channel. I'm slowly working through all of them. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment. Apparently YouTube's new algorithm seems to be running off engagement. Anyway, I do appreciate you watching and hope to see you next time.